Have you ever wondered why some of Britain's biggest stars looked at the highest honors in the land and simply said no? Most celebrities dream of royal recognition. Yet a surprising group of actors, writers, and musicians rejected titles that millions would proudly accept. As this countdown unfolds, the reasons become more fascinating. And wait until you discover which legendary superstar turned down both a CBE and a knighthood. Number 15. Lenny Henry. Few people expected Lenny Henry to become one of the most recognizable entertainers in Britain. Rising from a teenage talent show winner to a national comedy icon, he spent decades making audiences laugh while also becoming a respected actor and charity campaigner. By the time royal recognition came calling, many assumed he would gladly accept. Instead, Henry surprised observers by declining an OBE. The decision immediately sparked discussion, because honors from the crown are usually viewed as one of the greatest acknowledgments a public figure can receive. While he never made a dramatic public spectacle out of the refusal, the choice showed that receiving an award is not always a simple matter for celebrities. What makes the story even more interesting is that Henry later accepted a CBE and eventually became Sir Lenny Henry after receiving a knighthood in 2015. That unusual path sets him apart from many others on this list. His earlier refusal was not necessarily a rejection of recognition itself, but perhaps a reflection of personal timing and priorities. The episode remains one of the more intriguing twists in the British honours system, because it demonstrates that even those who later accept royal distinctions may initially choose a very different road. Number 14. Kenneth Branagh. Long before he became one of the most celebrated Shakespeare interpreters of modern cinema, Kenneth Branagh was already building a reputation as a fearless creative force. His film version of Henry V transformed him into an international star, while his ambitious adaptations of Shakespeare introduced classic literature to a new generation. At the height of his growing fame, Branagh reportedly declined a CBE in 1994. The decision caught attention because many actors would have viewed the honor as a crowning achievement. Instead, Branagh chose not to accept it at that stage of his career. The refusal became even more fascinating years later when circumstances changed. Rather than permanently rejecting the honors system, Branagh eventually accepted a knighthood in 2012. That shift reveals how personal perspectives can evolve over time. What feels inappropriate in one decade may feel entirely different in another. For fans of British cinema, the story adds another layer to Branagh's remarkable career. He has portrayed kings, generals, detectives, and literary giants on screen, yet his own relationship with royal recognition followed a path few could have predicted. His journey proves that decisions about honors are often more complicated than simple acceptance or rejection. Sometimes they reflect a person's changing view of legacy, responsibility, and public service. Number 13. Helen Mirren. Picture one of Britain's most respected actresses standing at the peak of her profession. Awards were arriving from every direction. Critics admired her range. Audiences adored her performances. Yet when a major royal honor was offered, Helen Mirren chose an unexpected response. In 1996, she reportedly declined a CBE. For many observers, the decision seemed surprising because Mirren represented the very kind of artistic excellence that the honors system was designed to celebrate. Her stage work, television appearances, and film performances had already earned enormous respect throughout Britain. What makes the story remarkable is what happened later. Rather than remaining outside the honors system forever, Mirren eventually accepted a damehood and became Dame Helen Mirren. The contrast between the earlier refusal and later acceptance created an intriguing chapter in her public life. Unlike stars who reject every distinction offered to them, Mirren's story reflects a changing relationship with recognition. Timing can matter. Circumstances can change. Personal beliefs can evolve. What seems unnecessary at one moment may feel meaningful years later. Today she remains one of the most admired performers of her generation. Yet her brief refusal reminds us that even the most celebrated stars sometimes hesitate before accepting the symbols of official approval that so many others chase without question. Number 12. Dawn French. Not every refusal comes from a dramatic political statement. Sometimes it arrives through a quiet decision, made far away from newspaper headlines. That was the case when Dawn French declined an OBE in 2001, alongside her longtime comedy partner Jennifer Saunders. By then, French had already become one of the most beloved figures in British entertainment. Through French and Saunders, she helped redefine television comedy, while proving that sharp writing could attract enormous audiences. Her success continued through major acting roles that turned her into a household name. Many expected official recognition to be welcomed without hesitation. Instead, French chose another route. The refusal generated interest because it happened during a period when both women were among the most influential comedy performers in the country. What stands out is the sense of loyalty attached to the decision. Rather than making the moment about individual prestige, the choice became part of the shared story between two performers whose careers had been linked for decades. The result is a fascinating chapter in British comedy history. French showed that professional success does not always lead someone toward royal honors, and that personal principles can matter more than public titles. Number 11. Jennifer Saunders. Imagine creating one of the most successful comedy series Britain has ever produced, and then turning away one of the nation's highest honors. That is exactly what Jennifer Saunders reportedly did when she declined an OBE in 2001. Saunders built her reputation through fearless satire and unforgettable characters. Her work on French and Saunders earned critical praise, while Absolutely Fabulous became a cultural phenomenon that crossed international borders. Few comedy writers of her generation achieved such influence. When recognition arrived through the honors system, many observers assumed acceptance was inevitable. Yet Saunders joined Dawn French in declining the award. The decision immediately became part of the ongoing discussion about whether artists should embrace official titles. Unlike celebrities who seek public attention through controversial statements, Saunders largely allowed the decision to speak for itself. That silence only increased curiosity about the reasons behind the refusal. Years later, her achievements continued to stand on their own. Awards came and went, but the impact of her work remained unchanged. The refusal demonstrated that for some creative figures, professional accomplishment carries more weight than ceremonial recognition. In a profession often driven by status, Saunders proved that success can be measured in many different ways. Number 10. Nigella Lawson. By the early years of the new century, Nigella Lawson had transformed cooking television into something entirely different. She was not simply presenting recipes. She was creating an atmosphere that attracted millions of viewers and readers across Britain and beyond. Because of that influence, many believed an official honor was only a matter of time. Reports later emerged that Lawson declined an OBE. The decision surprised fans because she had become one of the most recognizable public figures in British media. Unlike actors or musicians who often dominate discussions about royal honors, Lawson represented a different kind of celebrity. Her popularity came from books, television programs, and a unique ability to connect with audiences. That made the reported refusal especially noteworthy. The choice also reinforced a recurring theme found throughout this countdown. Recognition from the crown does not automatically appeal to every successful person. Some stars prefer their achievements to stand independently from official titles. Lawson's influence continued to grow regardless of the decision. Her books remained bestsellers. Her television appearances attracted loyal audiences. Her reputation remained secure. In the end, the story highlights an important truth. Public admiration and cultural impact can endure whether a famous name carries a royal title or not. Number 9. David Bowie. Now we arrive at perhaps the most famous refusal on this entire countdown. David Bowie was not merely a musician. He was a cultural force who repeatedly reinvented popular music and influenced generations of artists around the world. In 2000, Bowie reportedly turned down a CBE. 3 years later, he rejected something even more prestigious when a knighthood was offered. The second refusal instantly became headline news because many believed few entertainers would willingly decline such recognition. Bowie later explained that he never worked for honors or titles. For a performer whose career was built on individuality and creative freedom, the idea of becoming Sir David Bowie simply did not hold much appeal. What made the decision so remarkable was the stage at which it occurred. Bowie had already achieved almost every major accomplishment available in music. He was respected by critics, adored by fans, and recognized across the globe. There was nothing left to prove. Yet he still chose independence over ceremony. That choice only strengthened the mystique surrounding his legacy. Decades later, Bowie remains one of the most celebrated artists Britain has ever produced, and his refusal continues to be discussed whenever famous figures reject royal honors. Number 8. Michael Frayn. Rather than becoming a household celebrity through television or film, Michael Frayn earned his reputation through words. As a playwright, novelist, and journalist, he built a career founded on intelligence, wit, and remarkable observation. His most famous works, including Copenhagen and Noises Off, demonstrated a rare ability to combine entertainment with serious thought. Critics admired him. Audiences respected him. Official recognition seemed almost inevitable. Yet Frayne declined a CBE in 1989. Years later, he reportedly turned down a knighthood as well. The decisions placed him among a small group of distinguished British cultural figures who chose not to enter the honours system. Unlike some public personalities who explain every choice in detail, Frayne remained relatively private. That reserved approach only added to the fascination surrounding his refusals. What stands out most is how perfectly the decision matched his public image. Throughout his career, he appeared more interested in ideas than status. His achievements spoke loudly enough without the addition of honorary titles. Today, his work continues to be performed, studied, and celebrated around the world. The refusal of royal honors did nothing to diminish his standing. If anything, it reinforced the image of a writer who preferred intellectual independence over official recognition. Number 7. Alan Bennett. Consider the irony. A playwright famous for examining British society from every angle was eventually offered entry into one of its most celebrated traditions. Alan Bennett's response was simple. He declined. Bennett refused a CBE in 1988, and later turned down a knighthood in 1996. Those decisions immediately attracted attention because his work had become deeply woven into British cultural life. Productions such as The Madness of King George and The History Boys earned widespread acclaim and established him as one of the nation's leading writers. For Bennett, the refusal appeared entirely consistent with the values reflected in his work. His writing often explored ordinary lives rather than grand institutions. He possessed a sharp eye for social class and a deep skepticism toward status. That perspective made his rejection of honors feel less like a surprise and more like a natural extension of his personality. The fascinating part is that Bennett never needed titles to secure his place in history. His plays were already studied, performed, and admired across generations. As a result, his refusal became one of the most respected examples in the long history of Britain's honours system. It demonstrated that lasting influence can exist completely independent of ceremonial recognition and official prestige. Number 6. Vanessa Redgrave. Few performers have combined artistic brilliance and political activism as boldly as Vanessa Redgrave. Throughout her career, she became known not only for award-winning performances, but also for her willingness to defend causes that many public figures avoided. By the late 1990s, Redgrave had already achieved almost every honor available in the acting profession. She had collected major awards on stage and screen, while building a reputation as one of Britain's most respected actresses. Yet when the opportunity came to become a dame, she reportedly declined the honor in 1999. The decision surprised many observers because damehood is often viewed as one of the highest distinctions available to British performers. For Redgrave, however, public recognition had never been the driving force behind her career. What makes her story unique is that she had previously accepted a CBE. That contrast reveals a more complicated relationship with royal honors than simple acceptance or rejection. As circumstances changed, so did her perspective. Regardless of titles, her influence remained enormous. Generations of actors studied her work, and audiences continued to admire her fearless performances. The refusal ultimately became another chapter in a career defined by independence. Redgrave consistently followed her own convictions, even when doing so placed her outside the expectations of the establishment. Number 5. Alan Rickman. The voice alone made him unforgettable. Whether portraying a sophisticated villain or a deeply conflicted hero, Alan Rickman possessed a screen presence that could dominate an entire film with a single line of dialogue. Before millions knew him as Severus Snape in the Harry Potter series, he had already become one of Britain's most respected performers. His work in theater, television, and cinema earned widespread admiration from critics and audiences alike. Despite that success, Rickman reportedly declined a CBE. The decision attracted attention because he represented the type of accomplished actor frequently recognized through the honors system. Yet he appeared content to let his achievements stand without additional titles. Unlike many celebrities, Rickman rarely sought publicity for personal decisions. He preferred to focus attention on his craft rather than on himself. That quiet approach made stories about the refusal even more intriguing. What remains remarkable is how little the decision affected public perception. Fans continued to celebrate his performances, while fellow actors spoke of him with enormous respect. Today, Rickman's legacy rests on unforgettable roles rather than honorary distinctions. His refusal serves as a reminder that artistic greatness is measured by lasting work, not by letters placed before or after a name. Number 4. Doris Lessing. Some refusals become famous because of who made them. Others become famous because they happened more than once. Doris Lessing managed both. One of the most influential writers of the 20th century, Lessing built a literary reputation that stretched far beyond Britain. Her novels challenged readers to confront politics, society, and human nature through a perspective that was often fearless and unconventional. In 1977, she reportedly declined an OBE. Years later, she turned down a damehood as well. Those decisions immediately distinguished her from many of her contemporaries, who viewed such honors as the natural culmination of a successful career. Yet the story contains an interesting twist. Lessing later accepted the Companion of Honor, which is one of the rarest distinctions in Britain. That acceptance suggested her objections were not necessarily directed at every form of recognition, but perhaps at particular titles. The contrast added complexity to an already fascinating public figure. Lessing never fit comfortably into simple categories, and her decisions regarding honors reflected that independence. When she later received the Nobel Prize in Literature, her standing as a literary giant became undeniable. Royal titles may have been refused, but her influence on world literature proved impossible to ignore. In the end, Lessing demonstrated that recognition carries different meanings for different people, and that even the highest honors are sometimes viewed through a very personal lens. Number 3. John Cleese. Let's be honest. If there was ever a celebrity perfectly suited to challenge tradition, it was John Cleese. Throughout his career, the Monty Python legend built a reputation for questioning authority, mocking institutions, and exposing the absurd side of public life. That independent streak followed him far beyond comedy. By the 1990s, Cleese had already secured his place among Britain's most influential entertainers. Monty Python's Flying Circus had changed comedy forever. Fawlty Towers became one of the most celebrated sitcoms ever produced. His films attracted audiences around the world. Few people could have argued against honoring him. Yet Cleese reportedly declined a CBE in 1996. If that was not surprising enough, he later rejected a life peerage as well. The refusals instantly became major talking points, because they came from someone whose achievements clearly qualified him for official recognition. Unlike stars who remained silent about such decisions, Cleese often approached public matters with humor. He suggested that a seat in the House of Lords involved commitments he had little interest in pursuing. The explanation reflected the same sharp wit that made him famous. What makes the story memorable is how completely it fits the man himself. Cleese spent decades encouraging audiences to question authority. Accepting every honor offered to him might have seemed strangely out of character. His legacy today rests on groundbreaking comedy rather than titles. Millions still quote his work. New generations continue discovering his performances. In the end, John Cleese proved that influence can outlast any official distinction. Number 2. Albert Finney. Albert Finney belonged to a rare category of actor. He was admired by critics, respected by fellow performers, and beloved by audiences, yet he never seemed interested in celebrity culture. Throughout his career, he projected the image of a craftsman who cared more about acting than public status. That attitude became unmistakably clear when he reportedly declined a CBE in 1980. 2 decades later, he rejected something even more prestigious, by turning down a knighthood. For many observers, the decision was astonishing. Finney had starred in acclaimed films for decades, and could easily have embraced the title of Sir Albert Finney. Instead, he chose another path. According to accounts from the period, Finney believed such titles encouraged social divisions and unnecessary hierarchy. Whether people agreed with him or not, the position reflected a consistency that defined his entire life. He remained deeply connected to his working-class roots, and appeared uncomfortable with anything that elevated him above ordinary people. The refusal became one of the most famous examples in the history of British honors. Unlike some celebrities who later changed their minds, Finney never reversed course. He remained committed to the decision for the rest of his life. That choice only strengthened public respect for him. Audiences admired not just the performances, but also the conviction behind the man delivering them. Today, Finney is remembered as one of Britain's greatest actors. His work in films such as Tom Jones' Murder on the Orient Express and Erin Brockovich continues to earn praise. The absence of a title never diminished his stature, because his talent spoke louder than any honor ever could. Number 1. Paul Scofield. At the very top of this countdown stands the man many consider the ultimate example of a British star refusing royal honors. Paul Scofield was not merely an acclaimed actor. He was regarded by fellow performers as one of the finest stage artists of the 20th century. His reputation was extraordinary. Performances in Shakespeare productions earned widespread admiration, while his portrayal of Thomas More in A Man for All Seasons secured his place in cinematic history. Honors arrived from every direction. Awards accumulated. Praise never stopped. Yet Schofield repeatedly declined offers of knighthood. Unlike some celebrities who refuse recognition for political reasons, Schofield's explanation was remarkably simple. He reportedly saw no need to become Sir Paul Schofield. He was perfectly content remaining Mr. Paul Schofield. The statement captured the humility that defined his character throughout life. What makes the story especially powerful is that he had already accepted a CBE earlier in his career. His objection was not directed toward recognition itself. Instead, he appeared uncomfortable with the idea of acquiring a title that would permanently alter how people addressed him. The refusal became legendary within British theatre circles. Many younger actors admired the quiet confidence behind the decision. Schofield never campaigned against the honors system. He simply made a personal choice and stood by it. Decades later, his example remains one of the most respected in the history of British entertainment. While others chased status, Schofield seemed completely uninterested in it. That is why he earns the #1 position. Few stars turned down royal honors with such consistency. Fewer still did so while maintaining the admiration of virtually everyone around them. For Paul Schofield, the greatest title was the one he already possessed: actor. So what do you think? Were these stars making a powerful statement, or did they walk away from honors that millions would gladly accept? One thing is certain: their decisions made headlines and added another fascinating chapter to their legacies. If you enjoyed this countdown, be sure to subscribe, because there are many more surprising celebrity stories still waiting to be uncovered.